Now this is a nice looking piece of meat. I feel like that's what a man would say. Hi, my name's Sally, and today I'm going to show you how to cook steak like a man. Now, hear me out. I know this seems controversial, but every amazing steak that I have ever had was cooked by a man. And if you go onto YouTube and you search for how to cook a steak, it's all men showing you how to cook that juicy, delicious steak. And then I've worked in steakhouses, and guess who's cooking those steaks? Men. So today, as a female, I'm going to show you how to cook steak like a man. And it's going to be a foolproof method that works every time, and it is so good, so juicy, so delicious. So let's get started. The steak that you buy matters. It is probably the most important part of the whole process, where you buy the meat and what kind of cut of meat you buy. I would rather have one really nice, expensive piece of meat per month, steak per month, than have a cheap one every week. So if you take anything away from this video, it is this. Make sure you buy quality meat. So now you're probably wondering, well, what meat do I buy? Some of the most popular cuts of steak are ribeye, tenderloin, and strip loin. Today we have a porterhouse, which has the sirloin or strip loin on the left, and then the tenderloin on the right, and it's on the bone. And I think real men prefer their steaks on the bone. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to be using a reverse sear method, which I'll get into in just a moment. But for this particular method, I want to mention that you want a thick cut of meat. So this one is about 1 inch. You want it a minimum of 1 inch or more. So here we have a grass-fed Black Angus steak, which has a nice amount of marbling. You could probably go for a Wagyu steak, but then that is usually too marbled. And then if you go for a lean piece of meat, then it's gonna be kind of dry, not juicy, and not as flavorful. So when I talk about marbling, marbling is basically the intermuscular fat in the steak. And if you have a look at this steak, you're gonna see it's got a moderate amount of marbling, which you want for the flavor. And then we also have here a little strip of fat on the side, which when we put into the cast iron, we're gonna render that fat away, so you don't need to worry about it. Also, when it comes to steaks, when I say fat, you don't need to worry about that either. This fat is going to be cooked off or cooked into the steak, which is gonna make it juicy and flavorful, and you're not gonna be eating lumps of fat. Trust me, it's going to be amazing. Okay, now for the seasonings. What you wanna do is throw all your fancy seasonings out the window, because for a quality piece of steak, quality piece of meat, you're gonna need some quality salt and a little bit of pepper, and that is it. You wanna highlight the flavors of the meat. So the technique we're gonna use is something called dry brining. This is where you take a tray with a rack, and then you put your steak on there. Then you generously season it and put it in the fridge, preferably overnight. If you don't have a lot of time, it's fine, maybe a minimum of half an hour. And the reason that you want to do this is because dry brining removes the excess moisture from the steak, but the moisture that we don't want, which is water, basically. And then what's left, once all that excess is kind of pulled out of the steak, is flavor. The flavor and the juices that you do want. So don't worry, your steak is not going to dry out and be dry. It's going to be full of flavor, and the salt as well will kind of penetrate better overnight if you're doing it with this method. All right, now we want to generously salt the steak. You don't really have to worry about how much, like if you're doing too much, because it's a thick cut of meat. And then what you want to do is press that salt into the meat, and some pepper. You just want a little bit, not too much. Press that in, take your steak, get some of that excess like this, and then put it on the rack and put it in the fridge. All right, now it's time to take the steak out of the fridge. You want to do this about 20 to 30 minutes before you cook it. So to all my chef friends who said that you need to let it come to room temperature, I see you, but I do not hear you, because it's going to take several hours for a piece of meat to come to room temperature. We don't need that, and it's not going to change the process. So 20 to 30 minutes. So the method that we're going to be using today is called the reverse sear method. I love this method because it's basically a foolproof method. You're going to take your steak and you're going to put it in a low temperature oven, and that's what's going to make it heat evenly and gradually until the temperature that you want. And then you're going to take it out and you're going to sear it. We're going to use for this a thermometer, temperature probe. This is crucial, and it takes the guesswork out basically, because what you're going to do is you're going to place the probe into the steak, and then you're going to take that steak on this rack and then place that in the oven. I love my steak medium rare, and that requires an internal temperature of about 57 degrees Celsius. So when we put this steak in the oven with the temperature, you want to set it to 5 degrees less than what you want, because then we're going to take it out of the oven and then we're going to sear it. So the temperature is going to increase a little bit more. As I mentioned, I like my steak medium rare. I'm going to share with you some of the temperatures for the kind of doneness that you might want to have, whether that's medium, medium rare. For those that like their steak well done, pause this video, go to your car, chew on your tire, come back to this video, watch it to the end, and don't forget to like and subscribe. All right, so when it comes to inserting your probe, I have a little tip for you. What you want to make sure is that you're inserting it at the thickest part of the steak, and then you're not touching any of the bone. And a little tip is to measure on top of the steak where you want the probe to go, and then put your fingers there to hold the spot, and then you insert. And then once you've inserted the probe, you want to make sure you set the thermometer to the temperature you want, and it'll go off when it reaches that internal temperature. And now we want to put the steak in the oven at 135 degrees Celsius. When your thermometer beeps, pull out your steak, and at this point, the steak is fully cooked. Okay, now that the steak is out of the oven, what you want to do is remove the probe. It's not looking pretty, but that's why we're going to sear it. One more thing before we sear, I wanted to mention that you need to make sure that this pan is basically smoking hot. The best way to test if it is ready to go is water, and you throw it on, and if it beads and rolls around, you know you're good to go. Drizzle a little bit of an oil with a high smoke point, such as avocado oil, but do not use olive oil. What we are doing here is creating a crust. The reason is to add flavor and color to finish the steak off nicely. A few seconds on all sides, including the edges, to give it a nice sear. And yes, you can flip and turn the steak around as many times as you need. You just don't want to leave it on there too long because you don't want it to cook any further. Whew, that was hot. Okay, so now that we're done searing the steak and you've got a nice brown crust on the outside, kind of hear that. What happened was it's not completely perfect because the steak was not perfectly cut. So again, back to quality and what you purchase, you need to make sure that it is nicely cut from the butcher as well. So now is cutting the steak. What you want to do is lift it up so it's sitting on the bone. And then I forgot to mention, you need to let the steak rest. This steak has rested for about 10 minutes now. 5 minutes is good enough. And the reason you want the steak to rest is because you want it to relax, and then you want the juices to distribute evenly within the steak. And then when you do cut into it, the juices don't run out. So that's why resting is really important. So back to the cutting. When you're cutting your steak, you want to make sure that you're cutting as close as possible to the bone. And then once you've cut the sirloin and then the tenderloin off the bone, you want to cut against the grain. The grain goes this way. We're going to cut against the grain. How good does this steak look? It was cooked medium rare. The color is beautiful. It was juicy. And I think actually now it's time to taste it, see if it tastes good. So I'm going to go for the sirloin side. Here we go. Let's see. This is how you cook steak. This is how you cook steak. Like a man. It's so good. Oh, yummy. That was so good. Now you know how to cook steak like a man. I think this is the best way to do it. Anyway, I hope that you found this tutorial useful, easy to understand. If you have any questions or feel like being controversial and want to share an opinion, please leave them in the comment box below. I'm open to that. And if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe, hit the like button, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Strip loin. Ribeye. I almost forgot the ribeye. I need to do that again. So today we're cooking this. No, I don't know why I went like that. I don't know why I went in that direction. That the quality of the meat, mental blank, it's gone. Why?